Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Bullion. Joining us today is Lobo Tiggre, CEO of IndependentSpeculator.com. Lobo, welcome back.
Happy to be on the show.
Happy to have you on. I wanted to get you on to talk about everything that's happening in precious metals. Like it's moving really quick. We're seeing silver above the $54 mark. We're seeing gold at 43.62, and it's making rapid moves. What's happening right now, Lobo?
Well, of course, the caveat is nobody knows Mr. Market personally. He's not one guy that we can call on our speed dial because we're so very important, right? And get his
Right.
answer. The market is millions or billions, really, of participants around the world, all with their own motivations and things. But I do think that it's not like central banks suddenly decided to chase prices higher now, or it's not that suddenly the squeeze and the bullion squeeze that we've seen in London, which is, I think, highly material to silver. But I don't think that's driving the entire complex either. That's a bolt on top of something else. My guess, for whatever it's worth, is that I think the FOMO is starting to kick in here. Um, this is good news and bad news. Honestly, Ivan, it's
Hmm.
kind of scary because if
Yeah.
the next big move for gold and silver is the blow off top, that market mania, the legendary market mania like 1980, if that's what's next, well, our gold and silver stocks, they're going to go way higher. We'll make a lot of money. But if that's what's next, what comes after that is not so much fun.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Right. So I'd rather see, and as a fundamentalist, I'm looking at the money printing and the inflationary agenda of the Trump administration and the European rearmament and all this stuff. So I'm looking at the world and I see reasons for monetary metals and all real assets, including other commodities, to do better over the years ahead. And that's an easier trend to invest on. It's much more solid. So it is a bit alarming to see the pickup and acceleration here, but Mr. Market doesn't care what I want or what alarms me. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. And for what it's worth, I mean, you just watch the news. The mainstream people, like, it's gone from gold being too difficult to pronounce and never even mentioned a couple of years ago, except for the occasional tinfoil hat Peter Schiff guy or somebody like that on there, right? To becoming, oh wow, hey, look at gold. What about gold occasionally? To now, you've got your Ray Dalios and your Gundlachs saying, oh, your 20-25% allocation to gold is not excessive. Right. And even Jamie Dimon, gold bugs love that guy, right? Even Jamie Dimon is saying it's not entirely irrational to own some gold now. Like, wow,
Did you hear?
what an age in the world.
Did you hear Lobo about Morgan Stanley coming out and changing their perspective for their clients? They're saying no more 60/40 for stocks and bonds,
Yes,
bonds being
yes.
40%. Now they're telling their clients to sell bonds to go 60, 20, and 20% gold. So, do you think we're seeing institutional investors coming in into the gold and silver market, or maybe
There's
just the
there's
gold
there's no
market?
question. Now, I don't think everybody's done that yet, and I don't think Morgan Stanley itself has suddenly bought all that gold. If they're doing that now, that would actually perhaps explain some of the price action that we're seeing.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
but I think it was more of conceptual guidance. Hey, that 60-40 idea, maybe it should be updated. Um, and if you look at the macro picture and what's going on in the world, it's really not surprising. But it is the I think the institutional investors have been, at least at the fund level and the money manager level, they've been hip to this for a while. I was saying it went from people not knowing what gold was to now, smart people like the Dalios and Gunlachs of the world saying, hey, you should get in. And you're hearing that on the institutional level. You see these people from XYZ fund interviewed on Bloomberg or Yahoo Finance or something like that. And they're like, yeah, we're still buying Nvidia or some, AI, this, that, or the other, and we're hedging with some gold. Like that gets thrown in. And more recently, if they don't say that, the reporters are asking them, oh, well, what about gold? Are you hedging with some? Oh, yeah, yeah. So I see that as very much an idea whose time has come. It's there. What hasn't happened yet is the retail participation. The legendary shoeshine boy giving Bernard Baruch stock tips, right? We haven't seen that happen with gold and silver stocks. Um, in 1980, I saw that firsthand because I was the shoe shine boy. Well, I was more mowing lawns and babysitting, but I was taking the money and buying silver dollars with it, like actual silver dollars.
Hmm.
And my friends were doing it too at high school, right?
Wow.
So I mean, I know that it's not a buffetful story. I have lived that story, and it's absolutely not happening now. My Uber driver is not bragging about his stacks of gold and silver,
No.
right? Right. And my barista at Starbucks isn't giving me stock tips into the gold and silver space. That hasn't happened yet. Um, but if that's starting, if we're getting in the phase where the drumbeat from the financial media is starting to percolate through some thick skulls, and that unleashes a retail mania, I kind of wish it wouldn't happen. Um, but if it does, the next big move could be up. And I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that that could be. And the one thing I've been, getting a lot of pushback, and people hate it when I say this, but I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to make you money and help you keep it if at all possible.
Right.
And that is, of course, you need a strategy for how to make sure that you keep those gains. The worst thing in the world for long suffering gold bugs is to finally be right, to finally have even the mainstream media admit that you're right and see a lot of paper gains and then have them go poof and
Yeah.
disappear before you realize any of those.
Yeah, let's say next month it crashes or next month there's a massive correction and then we'll all be kicking ourselves saying, "Oh, we should have took some profit off the table."
Exactly, exactly. Now, bear in mind, I am not calling a top. I've just spent some minutes saying the next big move could be up instead of down.
Right.
It could go either way. And I see in the YouTube comments, people hate it when I say that. Gee, you're not helping, Lobo. It could go either way. Why do we listen to you? Well, would you rather that I convinced you that it's got to go up? Gold's the next stop has to be 5,000 for gold, and I convinced you, and you bet the farm on that, and then I was wrong. Would that really help you better?
No.
So when I'm saying it could go either way, I'm telling you A, the truth. And B, the reason for that isn't to weasel out on making predictions. It's to try to help you, as I was saying, to hold on to money. So because we don't know, you should have a strategy. My own is called the upside maximizer. I use a sort of trailing stop to take the guesswork out of it. Instead of me saying, oh, gee, I think the market's going to top, I use this system to let the math trigger me out rather than my emotions or my self-congratulatory analysis. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not calling a top. I'm not saying it's going down next. I'm also not saying it's going to the moon next. I'm saying I'm long. I own plenty of gold and silver stocks. I'm not looking to sell them yet, but I have my system in place so that if the market rolls over, I will get triggered and I will lock in my gains. And I encourage everybody to do something similar.
Hello, my fellow silver and gold stackers. Please hit the like and subscribe button. It will really help the silver and gold community grow. It'll help this channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it. Back to the video. Absolutely. And I know a lot of us in the precious metals space, uh, we'd love to see, the price of silver and gold gradually go up. But when it goes up like this, sometimes it is concerning. Sometimes you're like, as beautiful as it is and how like nice it is to see all these gains and see the price move this quick, it's also concerning at the same time that if it's moving this quick up on the upside, who knows what it would look like in the next year. And if it
There you
continues,
go,
yeah.
being reasonable and rational again. How are you
I know,
doing that?
I
Aren't
know,
you
how
just
dare
supposed to
you?
chase the FOMO? But no, it's interesting. I posted something on X today, um, and it was an article on, hey, this rapid rise in gold. It actually has sort of ominous implications. Gold is telling us something if you listen. So I posted that, and that wasn't my article. It was something I saw actually in a mainstream press, and it was interesting that they were saying that. And of course, gold bears, gold haters, you would expect them to say maybe something like that. But the point remains valid. Come on, $4,000 gold. It didn't just hit 4,000. It went screaming through, and it's still going strong.
Yeah.
As you and I speak, it's up again tonight in after hours market making. So what does that tell us? And when I posted, it's interesting. A lot of people said, yeah, this is something we need to take seriously. And other people like, well, those evil banksters and those Ponzi schemers, they deserve it, to heck with them. Well, the problem is those evil Ponzi scheme banksters and so on, they kind of run the world. So if they
Hmm.
crash and burn, what does that do to the rest of us that live in this world they run?
Yeah.
So, you know, you may have a Nietzsche-esque view of this, of an object that's about to fall deserves to be pushed. Maybe it does. But if the whole financial house of cards of the global order collapses finally, that implies turbulence, even for those of us who have stacks of real money prepared for just such an occasion.
If the market corrects, let's say, or just let's say collapses, hypothetically, stock market collapses 20, 30%, wouldn't that take down gold as well and silver?
The answer is that it has every time so far.
Yeah.
Like we saw it even in 2020, that flash crash of 2020.
Yeah,
We
I
saw it in
remember that.
2008. Now, I mean, and in both of those last two cases, it was very short. But when that liquidity crunch happens, when some guy's margin clerk is calling him and is telling him not, hey, you better pick some stocks to sell because you're overextended on your margin. He's calling to say, we sold this, and this to bring your account back into balance,
Right.
right? When that happens, you don't sell what you want to sell. You sell whatever you can that gets a bid. And that includes, the ultimate insurance policy. That's why we own gold, because it still gets a bid in the worst case scenario, right?
Right.
Still maintains its value. So we saw that in 2020. We saw that in 2008. I wasn't participating in 1987, but I'm told that we saw similarly then. So that's what the data tells us that we should expect. Now, if that's what happens, now you said broader markets. If the broader markets collapse, melt down, or even just go into serious correction mode, the short-term impact is a reversal for everything. Everything gets whacked in that liquidity crunch, including your insurance. You dip into your insurance because that's what it's for.
Right.
But it's short-lived. Now that's different if gold crashes. If for some reason it turns out that $4,400 gold was some Fibonacci, I don't know what, some reason for everybody to start selling, and the next, let's say gold hits 4,400, 4,500, and then it goes back down to 3,500. That would actually still be a great price for the actual business of mining and
Oh,
stuff.
for sure. Absolutely.
But what it would do to the stocks, $1,000 retreating gold, what would that do to the stocks? They would crater. So, and then you'd have to wonder, well, what happens next, and where does that go? So if you're, it's one thing if the metals themselves actually correct or go into bear territory, whole different kettle of fish. If the broader markets correct and go into bear territory, and that whacks gold and silver, that's completely different. In that case, it's an absolute buy, right? If you miss this big rally up in gold and silver, that market crash causing the gold stocks to go on sale and even spot prices to wobble,
Yeah, I get it.
in my view, that would be an absolute gift. It would be a screaming buying opportunity because they would be sold off for the wrong reason, right? Not because gold and silver were in any trouble, but because the broader markets were. And that volatility would create a buying opportunity.
Welcome to the Cayman Islands, a premier offshore jurisdiction where natural beauty meets financial stability. Here, your wealth is more than secure. It thrives in one of the most trusted and respected financial centers in the world. For over a decade, SWP has been the trusted choice for precious metal investors worldwide. Our purpose-built 6,000 square foot facility sets a new standard in precious metals storage. We are proud to be one of the only vault operators approved by the London Bullion Market Association. Beyond safeguarding your assets, we're committed to making a difference in our community by supporting local causes and events that reflect our values. As we continue to expand and innovate our services, we ensure that your wealth is safe and strategically positioned to shield you from the uncertainties that lie ahead. Strategic wealth preservation, trusted today and ready for tomorrow.
Opportunity.
I feel like there's a possibility that as the silver price increases anymore, you're going to start seeing a flood of, people from India or people around the world who are now seeing the silver price and start cashing in all their silver. Like whether it's antiques,
That
whether it's,
happens historically, happens
yeah,
even with gold too, though silver is much more vulnerable to it. But let me say something else. There's part of what's happening with silver now is there's an actual physical squeeze in London at the moment. All that silver that went with the gold to New York and Chicago ahead of Trump's
right.
tariffs. Well, now suddenly they've discovered, oops, we needed more of that here. and it's not coming in fast enough. So there's a physical squeeze now that's affecting silver. It's kind of funny, this silver bulls have long wanted to squeeze the shorts, right? Those
Right.
darn shorts, manipulators. And now Trump, without even intending to, with his tariffs, has actually pulled that off. There is a bona fide silver squeeze going on right now.
Wow.
And so how long will that last? The silver bulls want to say, oh, it'll take months for the ships to sail across the ocean and get enough silver there. Bears are saying, well, silver's already on the airplanes because they got to meet their contractual obligations. I don't know how that's going to play out,
Right.
but it is specific to silver and separate from what's going on with central banks and de-dollarization and all the macro trends. That's a different thing from what is specifically impulsing silver now. And frankly, I think that's good news, because if silver was just screaming up as a monetary metal and starting to catch up with gold, that would actually be a signal that we're coming to the end of this bull cycle. Because even your most diehard silver bulls will tell you silver usually lags gold at first in the bull
Yeah.
market and more
Yeah.
than catches up at the end. So if we're in that more than catches up part, that implies the end is nigh. Now that end might be twice higher from now. Who knows where that end is? But it implies that we're coming close to the end of this cycle, and I'd rather see this cycle, last for years. Again, Mr. Market doesn't care what I'd rather, but the physical squeeze being part of what's happening with silver now gives me some comfort that it's not just silver finally catching up with gold. The London squeeze is specifically pushing silver in a way that it's not pushing gold right now. So I see that as good news, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lobo, I want to thank you so much for coming down. It's really exciting times that we have right now in our hands. I feel like we're living in a time of history, witnessing all of this and living through it for precious metals. I'm going to add your links in the description below, but where can people find you, Lobo?
Independentspeculator.com. And if you're interested, not in bailing out, but in my strategy for making sure you don't let your win slip through your fingers, you should check out a free report on my website called the Upside Maximizer. That is how I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lobo, thank you so much for coming down, speaking to the precious metals community. And as the market develops, I have a feeling there's going to be some more news. It's happening quicker and quicker these days. It's almost shocking right now it's happening. So I'd love to have you back on in the future.
Happy to do it, Ivan.
Talk to you soon.